Hello and welcome to another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
I'm Chris Costa.
So Chris, what are customers asking about lately?
Well, we've been getting a lot of inquiries about how to use the wizard. What is it? How is it set up?
Okay, that's a great topic. Let's first talk a little bit about what it is.
Sure.
Basically, what the wizard is it lets you take a template that you have built in Enterprise and add options to it.
Mm-hmm.
Options for things like ink, pre-press processes, post-press processes, the stock you want to run it on.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a little bit easier, a lot easier, to enter an estimate or an order. You don't have to select a template and then make changes to it.
Right.
You can select the template and then just through prompts select the options and then you're done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we check out a few samples?
Sure, I got a couple right here.
Okay.
So let's start off in estimating order entry. And I'm going to create a new estimate or order. It doesn't matter, you can use the wizard in either.
Mm-hmm.
And you would basically fill out your header page, and then when you, instead of adding components, you would come over here and click on Wizard. Now when this pops up, you have categories for your wizards, just like you would for your template categories. I've got two, business cards and flyers. And then so you highlight the category that you want to select your wizard from. I'm going to start with a business card. And then you come over here under Wizards and select the particular wizard you want to run. And click Next. It will come up with your description from your template. This will be your job description. You'll also have your component description here. And you can enter a detailed description in this area here if you want to. And then in the bottom section here, you have the options that were set up for this particular wizard. Now I've set one up for design. And in this option, I've selected choices out of my list of pre-press processes. So I can choose either typesetting or art and design to add to this template. I've then created a couple of options for laminating and boxing. Now these are done as a checkbox, so if I check it off, it will add laminating to the template. And if I leave it unchecked, it won't.
Mm-hmm.
So say I want to add both laminating and boxing, I would check them off. Now in the template I have built for my business card, I have default stock, but I might want to give options for different types of paper that I might want to run this particular business card on. So I'm going to select the paper that I want to run this one on. And also for ink, I can choose the ink template I want to run it on. So I can have it be 4/4, 4/1, 2/2, 4/0, or you can make a variety of these, whatever inks that you want. And not only will it pull in the number of inks for each side, it will also pull in particular inks.
Okay.
So if I want to run this as 2/2, I would select that, click Next. And now I can enter my quantities. And just like I can in estimating order entry, I can enter up to 6 quantities. So if I want to do an estimate or an order for 500, I would enter 500 there. If I want to enter a second quantity, I would enter it there. So I'll put in 1,000. And in this particular wizard, I've added an option to enter the number of lots. Because for a business card, I might want to be doing cards for 3 different people or 4 different people. So say this is for 4 different lots. I click Finish. And Enterprise builds my component for me.
Okay.
I click on Edit. I see my quantities here. It pulled in the template, the base template that I had connected this wizard with.
Sure.
It brought in my number of inks that I had told it, the 2/2. It brought in the paper that I had chosen. This information here, my standard layout, is going to be in the base template. In my ink template, it brought in the 2 colors I had on the side for side 1 and the 2 colors I had for side 2.
Okay.
And then under processes, it brings in any processes that were in the standard template, and then it adds what you had for options. So it added my art and design. It brought in the press that I had selected in my inks, because in the ink template, you can tell it what press you want to run that particular job for those inks on. And then it brought in, the cutting process was in my standard template, but then it brought in the laminating and the boxing process that I had checked off.
Okay.
So basically, you can build a template, build an estimate of an order without even going into the component information at all.
Sure. Very nice. Very nice. Now, with this one, you mentioned an option for a number of lots. What if I really want to just enter the number of pages?
All right, so something like a flyer. I have a wizard built for doing a standard 8.5 by 11 flyer where you can enter different amounts of pages.
Yeah, like maybe 24 or 28 pages.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let me delete this component, and we'll start a new one. I'm going to click on Wizard, go down to my flyer category, select my wizard, and click Next. Again, this brings in the component description and In this particular template, I already had a component detail description, and you can append to it or change it here.
Mm-hmm.
Now here's where I'm entering the number of pages. This template was set up as a 16 page, but say for this particular job I want it to be 24. I can enter the number of pages there, and in this particular wizard I've set up 4 options, all with drop downs, so I can choose. I've set up an option for either pre-flighting or typesetting, so I'll select pre-flighting. I've put in an option for different types of binding, so I have a choice of wire roll binding or saddle stitching. And then I've also put in choices for paper and choices for ink. And you'll notice I don't have all 4 choices. In this particular one, I'm only allowing 3 choices.
Okay.
So say I want to do this as 4/4. I click on Next. Again, I can put in my quantities, so say I'll just put in 10,000 here. And I click Finish. When it builds the components, Enterprise is smart enough to know that it needs a 16-page and an 8-page component.
Right, very good.
If you did 28 pages, like you said, it would have done a 16-page, an 8-page, and a 4-page component.
Okay, excellent.
Makes it very easy.
Very nice.
One other thing I'm going to show you here too is when I edit the component, again, it brought in my quantity, it brought in my ink information here and here in the paper. Another thing it does is in the post-press process, you'll see that I have my saddle stitching there, the binding process I had chosen. Enterprise is smart enough to know that that binding process, if it's a bind all components process, it'll only put it in the first component.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
What would be the first thing, now we've seen how to use it, what would be the first thing I need to do to start setting one up?
Well, to start setting one up, you have to start with a base template.
Okay.
We did a video on templates previously, so you can look at that to learn how to create a template. But let me show you one of the base templates I used.
Okay, very good.
So I'm going to cancel out of here and go to my main screen here and look at one of the templates I have built for business cards. And I did one called SBC for Standard Business Card. And if I look at that template and I go into the component to see how that was built, basically what you want to do in the template is you can put in a standard number of inks, standard inks for a basic business card template, and a standard paper. This all gets overridden by the options that you do in the wizard. But under processes, you want to make sure that you only put in processes that you would always want in the template. For example, cutting the press sheet is something I'm always going to do regardless of the other options, so I can put that in my base template.
Right.
You can put a press in your base template because that gets overridden. But any pre-press processes that you want to make options, you wouldn't include.
Okay.
So you only do the, like I said, put the things in there that would be in every job.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Sure.
We cancel out of here.
Okay.
Okay, so we've talked about
how to use it, how to get started. So I guess the next question for me would be, how do I add this template into a wizard?
Okay. Well, to do that, we're going to start in the standards module. So let's go over there.
Sure.
So I'm going to go into File Maintenance. And you'll see you have an option here called Wizards. And you would select Estimating Order Entry Wizards. And you'll get this screen, 3 basic groups here. The top left-hand corner is your wizard categories, just like your template categories. If you edit that, it's basically just a code and a description, just like your standard template categories. So you can group them and make them easier to find. In this section here, you have your ink templates. Let me edit one of the ink templates I have here. And you can put in a description. Now I've just put in 4/4, but if you wanted to, you might have multiple 4/4 templates with different types of ink. So I could have a 4/4 4-color process template. I could have a 4/4 PMS color template. You could give it a more detailed description based on the inks that you choose down here. Now in the ink template, you're also telling it how many sides the job's going to be, how many colors on each side, what press you want it to run on for that particular group of inks. And you can pull in multiple presses if you're going to do some colors on different presses. You could even bring in pre-press processes, a group of pre-press processes with their particular quantities for this particular ink template. And you can also prompt the user to select from a group of inks if you don't want to force the user to have to use the inks that you choose here. If you want to pick particular inks, you would select, add the ink here, and you can tell it what side you want that ink to print on, side 1, 2, or both.
Okay.
Okay, so you might pick, like if this were a PMS, PMS ink, you could pick one PMS ink here and have it prompt the user to choose inks from the same category, and then they can see the list of all the PMS inks and be able to choose from that list. All right. And then the last thing you would need to set up is the actual wizard itself. So let me edit this one and show you what we did here. You would give your wizard a description. You would link your wizard to the base template in Enterprise by just clicking this drop down and selecting the particular template here. Then you have a couple of other options, things like you could prompt it for the page count if it were something like the flyer like we did before. This one I've selected for lots, this particular template now will prompt me for lots. I can force the press sheet size to match the stock parent size. I can put the processes in process code order, so no matter how I select them, it will put them in the process code order. I can allow the user to enter manual price, and I can also display the press comparison button. And then I can add my options down the bottom here. Simply by clicking add will let you add a new option. I'm going to edit one of the ones I have here. You would give your option a description. It can be a list of pre-press processes, post-press, inline operations, stocks, ink templates, or even pre-press and post-press templates, which will let you bring in a group of pre-press processes or a group of post-press processes. And then you have a choice of it being either a checkbox or a drop-down. If it's a drop-down, like in this case, you would list the choices here, which you would add the various pre-press processes that you want to choose here. Or is in this case, if it's a checkbox, then you would choose the process here that you want it to be to add to the particular job when you select it.
So that's more of a yes or no.
Yes, yeah, it's a check on or off.
Yep.
And you can do the same thing for stocks, for inks, pre-press, post-press, inline operations, and make it really easy for your users to enter estimates and orders.
Yep. No, it seems great. It seems fantastic.
Do you have any other questions?
No, I think that was very good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us for another episode of EPMS Tech Talk. I'm Joanne LaFlamme.
And I'm Chris Costa.
Please look forward to more to come.